The bad guys were always caught by Columbo, but Peter Falk had his own problems to deal with. He drank a lot and smoked 3 packs every day while filming his famous part. His relationships were known to everyone in Hollywood. His first wife finally gave up after 16 years and asked for a divorce. The most sad part? It got worse between him and his children. When he got Alzheimer's in 2008, his daughter had to get court leave to visit for 30 minutes. But what we're about to show you is much more exciting. Watch out. In 1927, Peter Falk was born in the Bronx. Born in Russia, his family had roots in Eastern Europe, Hungary, and Bohemia. His dad ran a store. He had a mother who worked with numbers. When the Great Depression hit, things got really bad. Like a lot of other people, the Falks had to leave the city for something cheaper. Peter was only 3 years old when his preschool teacher saw something odd. He turned his head in a funny way to see. That little thing led to a life-changing diagnosis: she had eye cancer. Fast work by the doctors. They took out his right eye within 2 days. He had a glass eye on for the rest of his life. It made him look unique, and that look would become famous. But that was just the beginning. A lot of kids would have given up. No, Peter didn't. He was sure of himself, funny, and driven as a child. He was 6 years old when his family moved to Ossining, a small town close to New York City. One thing made the town famous: Sing Sing prison. Peter often went with his dad to prison to sell clothes to the inmates. He got close to crooks. He even played basketball with teams from prisons. One of the prisoners, who was called Piggy Sands, stood out. They were skilled, quick, and tough. Later, when Peter played cops or thieves on TV and in movies, it all came back to him. It was easy to spot Peter at Ossining High School. He was vice president for 1 year and head of the class for 3. He was smart, funny, and well-liked. He played sports even though he had a fake eye on. It took grit for him to play baseball and hoops. He thought he was safe when he was called out at third base one day. He took out his glass eye in front of everyone and gave it to the referee. He told you that this one would be easier. Everyone in the room laughed out loud. That showed a lot about him. They didn't try to hide from him. He used them as jokes. He wanted to fight in World War II after high school, but because of his eye, every branch of the service turned him down. Then he found a way out. The Merchant Navy didn't care as much about seeing. He joined in 1945 and worked in the kitchen. For 18 months, he was at sea. He made fun of the idea that the captain was the only person on a ship who needed to see. Even the captain of the Titanic had trouble with that. After that, his path wasn't straight at all. He went to Hamilton College for a month but dropped out after only 1 week. Way too serious. Not enough girls and fun. He left, and in a brave move, he almost joined the Israeli army in 1948, when they were fighting for their freedom. Did not have a deep political reason. He just wanted something exciting. He discovered a secret group in Manhattan that was helping Americans join the army. He was put in charge of a ship. But after 8 days, the war was over. The plan was gone in an instant. Falk crossed lines because he was interested. After leaving the Merchant Navy, he went on a trip around Europe after the war. He worked as a railroad worker for 6 months in communist Yugoslavia. It was different from everything he knew, but that's what made it worth it. Not yet. He wasn't after fame. He was looking for experience. He finally went back to college and tried again. His first stop was the University of Wisconsin. After that, he went back to Hamilton and then to the New School in New York. There, in Greenwich Village, he got his degree in 1951 in both literature and politics. That was a good way to describe him, a mix of dreamer and thinker. He went to Paris with a girl after finishing. All in all, that's Peter Falk. Always chasing something, acting without thinking. His life changed for the better in 1953. SUNY gave him a master's degree in public administration. He had planned to work for the government, but he later said he wasn't really interested in it. He even tried to become a CIA agent. They turned him down because he used to work as a cook and was in a union. A communist group was involved, but Falk wasn't a part of it. That was still enough to shut the door. He got a job as a budget expert in Connecticut because of this. It made him mad. On his first day, he didn't even know where the office was. But he started acting at night while working as a mathematician during the day. He joined a neighborhood theater group and loved being on stage. He wasn't taught. He wasn't sure if he was good enough. But something worked. He began taking classes with Ava Le Gallienne, a famous acting teacher. He told her lies about being an actor to get into her class. She told him one day that he was late. It was true what he said. He wasn't very good. She told him, "Well, you should be." That was the time. He made a new life out of that one line. He quit his job with the government. Greenwich Village is where he now lives. And with just a word of recommendation in hand, Peter Falk chose to become an actor. When he was 3 years old, cancer took away his right eye. A lot of people thought it would keep Falk from acting, but he didn't care. A neighborhood theater group called the Mark Twain Maskers had already cast him in plays. He had been in tragedies like The Crucible and The Caine Mutiny Court-Martial. He was brave enough to go all in after those small steps. In the 1950s, Greenwich Village was the place to be for art. Very loud, messy and artistic. Falk would have liked to be there. Falk started learning acting while he still had a job in Hartford. There was some way he talked his way into a special group in Westport that was run by the famous actress Ava Le Gallienne. They were the only ones she taught. Falk wasn't one. He lied to get in and then drove 70 miles every week to go to school. He was always late. Lawleen asked one day why. He said his job was in Hartford. She asked how he was able to act there for a living. She looked at him and said, "Well, you should be," when he told her he wasn't even an amateur performer. Everything changed after that one line. Just before he left, she told a contact at William Morris that he should talk to that person. Falk also learned to play from Sanford Meisner, who was one of the best acting teachers in the United States. His methods were based on being honest and reacting emotionally. Falk would use these skills in his acts for years to come. Falk's first stage show in New York was in January 1956. At the 4th Street Theater, it was in Don Juan. The show was only on for one night, which wasn't the best start. But by May, he was in the Iceman Cometh at Circle in the Square. There were big stars in the play, like Jason Robards. People saw it. Falk's first show on Broadway was Diary of a Scoundrel in November. Even though it was only 3 weeks, it showed that he belonged on that stage. He was in St. Joan with Choban McKenna by the end of 1956. Up until January 1957, that one did pretty well. Was a government worker for a year before becoming an actor in big Broadway shows. But film was a harder hill to climb. He told Falk, "For the same price, I can get an actor with 2 eyes," when Falk first went to Columbia Pictures. Most people would give up after hearing that, but Falk kept going. In 1958, he got a small part in Nicholas Ray's film Wind Across the Everglades. He got to work on a movie set even though it wasn't a big part. An American movie called The Bloody Brood came out in 1959, and he played a beatnik killer in it. Not very exciting, but it added to his experience. He was also making a name for himself in TV at the same time. From 1957 on, he was on big variety shows like Kraft Television Theater, Studio One, and Robert Montgomery Presents. He even had a try run for the part in the movie Marjorie Morningstar, but didn't get it. The movie business still wasn't sure about him. After that, in 1960, Murder Incorporated came out. In real life, Falk played a police officer named Abe Riles. The movie didn't cost much and was shot in 9 days. Falk got his outfit from thrift stores. The bad guys he based the character on were ones he remembered seeing at a pool hall when he was younger. It was very exciting. Someone in the New York Times said Falk seemed innocent until he pulled out an ice pick. People were shocked by the sudden coldness in his act, which made them stop and look. Even though the movie didn't have a big budget or much promotion, Falk was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Stars from big studio movies like Spartacus and The Apartment were up against him. Even though he didn't win, just being nominated was a big deal. The movie industry was finally paying attention. Falk also got a nod that same year. He was the first actor to be nominated for both an Oscar and an Emmy in the same year, 1961. The next year, he did it again. Peter Falk had a crazy event happen to him in 1961. For Best Supporting Actor in Pocket Full of Miracles, he was up for his second Oscar in a row. He got his first nod for Murder Incorporated just a year before. You should have been proud of that on its own. But now comes the crazy part. That same year, he was also nominated for an Emmy. This is something he did for 2 years in a row. That was something no actor had ever done before. At the heart of it all was a production that was having trouble. After the fact, director Frank Capra said that making the movie was terrible, but Falk was the only good thing about it. Capra even said that Falk made him forget about being tired and wanting to kill Glenn Ford. He thought Falk was so great in a role that he res-hot a scene just to see it again. It was the same movie that made Margaret famous. So when she first appeared on screen, she made history. But Falk wasn't just different because of his awards. It was how much he put into every part. The people in charge said he worked like he was crazy. Falk went into gear in 1962, after the Dick Powell Theater won an Emmy and was nominated for 2 Oscars. He didn't just play parts, he became them. He worked as a police officer for 3 weeks before playing one. He went on overnight watch. He wanted a full childhood story for a figure who only had 14 minutes of screen time in The Great Race. For a part in 1964, he lost 18 pounds in just 2 weeks. He also refused painkillers when he got hurt on the job. He said that the real pain would help them do better. His focus followed him when he wasn't on camera. In 1967, he played a part for so long on a movie that his co-star Julie Harris asked to eat lunch somewhere else. It was too much for her to handle. From 1961 to 1967, Falk worked as an actor in both TV shows and movies, even as he got into character. At first, he was on TV in the late 1950s, on shows like Robert Montgomery Presents and Kraft Television Theater. In 1961, he was up for an Emmy for The Law and Mr. Jones and Target, The Corruptors. He also appeared in the opening of Target, The Corruptors with Walter Matthau. He played a crazy ruler on The Twilight Zone. He played a creepy gangster and a fake preacher on Alfred Hitchcock's show, but he did more than just scary things. In Wagon Train, he played a man who had to decide whether to save his brother or drive a wagon. He kept getting parts in big movies like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and The Great Race. It was the first time anyone had ever won both an Emmy and an Oscar in the same year, 1962. Behind the scenes, though, things were not always easy. People were starting to think that Falk was a real pain. Directors said he fought over lines, camera settings, doors, and everything else. He made them do 37 takes of a simple entrance in one movie because the door wouldn't open right. He got into such a bad fight with director Edward Dimitrix over Anzio that they could only talk with help. Some directors were getting ready for the chaos Falk caused by adding terms to their contracts in 1966. One producer told me, "You put up with hell because what you see on screen is heaven." But not everyone agreed. Some managers no longer work with him at all. Things changed in 1968. Falk put on a musty jacket on February 20th and became Lieutenant Columbo. At first, no one thought he would get the part. The writers wanted Bing Crosby to sing. Crosby said no, though, because he didn't want to miss playing golf. Columbo had been played by 2 other artists before Falk. First in person in 1962, then on TV in 1960. But when director Richard Irving suggested Falk, the writers weren't sure what to do. They thought he was too young, but Falk told them he would give anything to play that cop. Because he loved it so much, he played Columbo for 35 years. Falk gave the figure his look. That old coat of rain was his. Because he wore it so much, it fell apart after 25 years and had to be replaced. Falk made Columbo look like someone you would walk past without noticing. In one scene, he was mistaken for a homeless person, which worked out great. Suspects always thought less of him. That was the trick. They saw a guy who was messy and awkward. But there was a very smart mind behind the bad haircut and cheap cigars. He didn't even name his dog, it was just called Dog. Then the saying, "just one more thing that wasn't planned," came out. It was added quickly when the writers rewrote the scene. Columbo was told to ask one more question because they didn't want to type the whole page over again. It didn't move. Falk made a gun out of it. The suspects thought they were safe, but then something else happened. It became so well known that Falk later used it as the subject of his autobiography. But Columbo wasn't just well known for that line. With its own style, the show changed everything. Most crime shows were based on whodunit. You had no idea who killed them. When people watched Columbo, on the other hand, they saw the murder right away. Seeing Columbo figure it out was what kept us guessing. It didn't matter who did it. It had to do with how he would catch them. This type of show, called a How Catch 'Em, focused on the smart details. Small things like a shoelace, the air conditioner in a car, or caviar that was left over. It looked more like a game of chess than a chase. Even though you knew what would happen, it was still exciting to watch it happen. You could see Peter Falk in more than one role. He became well known. He became one of the most famous actors in TV history because of his part as Columbo. In 1972, 1975, 1976, and again in 1990, he won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards. He also won a Golden Globe in 1973. Strangest thing about it all? It was the first time an actor was up for both an Emmy and an Oscar in the same year. He also did that very rare double twice. Twice, once in 1961 and once in 1962. He was making $250,000 for each Columbo show by 1976. These days, that's more than $1.3 million per show. At the time, it was the best pay in TV. Why? Because NBC didn't want to lose him. It was the 1930s and Columbo was getting high Nielsen numbers. Advertisers were willing to pay a lot of money. Columbo was the time when everyone wanted to be on. The love didn't go away even after many years. Magazine TV Guide named Falk the 21st best TV star of all time in 1996. They later said that Columbo was the 7th best TV figure of all time. One show from 1971 called Murder by the Book had Steven Spielberg as the director when he was young. That episode made it all the way to number 16 on their list of the 100 best ever. Columbo was also known for having great bad guys. It became an honor to play a killer on the show, and not just any actor. 5 stars have only ever played more than one killer. 4 times, Patrick McGoohan did it. Robert Culp did 3. After that, Jack Cassidy, George Hamilton, and William Shatner showed up. McGoohan played Nelson, Oscar, Colonel Rumford, and Eric, all of whom were killers. For very different guys. In one episode, Culp played a killer who tricked people into killing him with subliminal pictures. That was an in-death shot from 1973. It often casts well-known people who look like they could be rich as killers and put them up against the dirty, trench coat-wearing Columbo. It was always about smarts over flash. The poor guy versus the strong elite. With that set up, Columbo was more than just a crime show. It turned it into a statement on class. Behind the scenes, things were not calm. Falk got into a fight with NBC. The creators of the show didn't want Columbo to appear for the first 20 minutes of an episode. NBC didn't like that plan. The idea of Columbo's unseen wife was also something they didn't like. Falk and the artistic team said they were going to quit. Things didn't calm down after that. In 1973, Falk was so afraid of losing control of the show that he hired someone to look out for his best interests. Writing scripts had to be kept secret. Falk would still get early picks in some way. Falk would give long, emotional speeches when directors tried to push him too hard. The sounds were so rough that they reminded me of gangster flicks. They did their job. The executives pulled back. When they wouldn't let him direct, he even stopped work by saying he was sick. In the end, they gave up. He was in charge of Blueprint for Murder in 1971. But there was a cost to all that power. NBC had had enough by 1978. Falk asked for more cash. The funds were getting bigger. The show was called off. Falk pushed the limits even when he wasn't with Columbo. The two met at the Paramount cafeteria in 1967. John Cassavetes was an independent director. Cassavetes thought of a story about 3 friends who go crazy when one of them dies. That turned into Husbands in 1970, but the money ran out. The stars, including Falk, gave up almost $1 million to make it happen. Falk wasn't used to Cassavetes' easygoing style. He once said, "I have no idea what he's talking about, but they figured it out." In 1974, Falk played the lead role in A Woman Under the Influence. He played a working-class man who was having a hard time dealing with his mentally ill wife. 2 Oscars were given to that movie. Feminist author Betty Friedan even said nice things about men. She said in a 1971 article in the New York Times that it showed that guys were also trapped, feeling alone, lost, and eager to make a real connection. Falk also had a big joke win. The In-Laws came out in 1979. It cost $9 million to make, but it made $38.2 million. He played Vince Ricardo, a strange CIA agent who caused trouble for his coming-to-be-in-law, Alan Arkin, who played a nervous dentist. People still talk about the scene in which Falk yells serpentine as Arkin dodges his made-up shots. The critics loved them both together. Some people said they were like the makers but better. The movie became so well known that the CIA showed it to new agents at their training camp. It wasn't as good as the version that came out in 2003. The first one stayed as standard. Then he played one of his softer parts. Falk played a grandpa in The Princess Bride, 1987, who read a fairy tale to his sick grandson. It made $30.9 million. It wasn't a big deal at the time, but it became a cult favorite. Falk's voice added a warm, wise tone. He said things like "you wish" with the right amount of love and charm. His parts gave the movie its heart. Roger Ebert said that Falk's voice was cool because it wasn't too sweet. It has just the right amount of edge to keep things interesting. The movie was later chosen to be kept alive in the National Film Registry of the United States. As of this point, Falk had done everything: drama, comedy, and even directing. He directed more episodes of Columbo, and some insiders said he also directed other shows in secret. For one line, he was known to do dozens of takes before getting it right. And his pay kept going up as the years went by. When Columbo came back in 1989, he was making $600,000 per show. He even thought about making one last movie called Columbo's Last Case. The party for the detective's retirement would be the start, but the network wasn't interested, and Falk's health was getting worse. Still, that part of him that was never happy and always interested stayed. That part that made Columbo squint, tilt his head, and say, "One more thing." That's the Peter Falk who never gave up and never stopped working. And keep telling the story. Peter Falk seemed to have everything going for him. A part, money, fame, and awards. Everyone knew Lieutenant Columbo from that movie. But that charming, messy detective had been through a lot of pain, betrayal, and strife in his life. It began when he finally married Alice Mayo in 1960. He had been after her for 12 years. Their love story began at Syracuse University, where they met and gave birth to 2 girls, Catherine and Jackie. In the same year, Falk was up for an Oscar. From the outside, everything looked great, but cracks were already showing. On screen, Falk played a loyal and kind detective, but in real life, he was living a very different story. He was known for chasing women on almost every movie set he went to. People on the crew would secretly bet on who he'd next flirt with. He began seeing 22-year-old Shara Danice while he was still married to Alice Boo. It wasn't just her. Falk was known to date several women at once, sometimes in different places. People who work in Hollywood weren't shocked. People found out he had been cheating, but that wasn't the end of his troubles. Falk drank a lot and smoked all the time, 3 packs a day. Lunch with vodka and fights on set. He was going to stop. Every hour they filmed just to light a cigarette. He was awful to work with for directors. He insisted on rewrites, argued over camera settings, and slowed down and cost more for every production. Studios admired his skills but didn't like the trouble he caused. Some people were even afraid to hire him by 1976. Things were worse at home. She worked hard for 16 years to keep the marriage together. She took care of their daughters and didn't talk about his business. But by the end of 1975, she was done. Was seeing Shara Danice in public, and Alice couldn't take it any longer. Back in 1976, she asked for a divorce. Not much going on, just a quiet goodbye. She got the house and the help, but she never said bad things about him in public. She was polite for their daughter's sake. Falk, on the other hand, was making $250,000 an episode on Columbo. But as his fame grew, he spent less time with his children. He was away for weeks at a time from 1971 to 1976. That same year, his older daughter Catherine sued him because he stopped paying for her college at Syracuse. He went to court with her even though he was worth more than $5 million by 1975. Their relationship fell apart. Things got even worse when he married Shara in December 1977, not even a year after his divorce. Shara was Miss Pennsylvania World 1970. She was beautiful, driven, and eager. No one thought their marriage would last 33 years, but it did. But it was full of fights, stress, and being apart. Also, things got worse for Falk as he aged. Falk's autobiography, Just One More Thing, came out in 2006. Like him, it was funny, honest, and a mess. He didn't stick to a plan. He only told stories. He had cancer as a child that took his eye. 12 years of hard work to become an actress. Being friends with famous people like John Cassavetes. In his own words, it was Falk. But soon after, things changed. In 2007, dental surgery seemed to cause a quick drop. He was told he had Alzheimer's in 2008. Then there was a court case. In 2009, his daughter Catherine asked to be in charge of the household. She said that Shara was stopping her from seeing her dad. Shara said Catherine only wanted money. Both sides blamed the other in court. Catherine said that her dad had sent her hundreds of postcards one time. This time, she said, Shara shut the door in her face. Falk's lawyers fought back with Falk's diary, which said he hadn't talked to Catherine in years. The judge tried to make things fair. Shara took charge, but Catherine had to come over. For only 30 minutes every other month. He wasn't even aware of her because Falk's mind was so messed up at that point. It broke my heart. The man who played a detective known for having a lot of heart couldn't even remember his own daughter. After that, the last blow. He was 83 years old when he died on June 23, 2011. A life that had once been so bright was cut short by pneumonia and Alzheimer's, but Catherine didn't get a call. No goodbye word for family or friends. Like everyone else, she learned about it from the news. The whole world was sad. Steven Spielberg told him he was great. Robin Williams said he was one of the best comedic artists ever. There was quiet, though, that hurt more than any words could say. It was again just him and his girls.